So let's take it from the top here. So one of the questions I like to start with everybody is right from the very beginning. And I know you come from a swimming family, so I can imagine that you may have been following some brothers into the swimming pool when you got started. But tell me about your beginning with the sport.
Okay, in Birmingham, Michigan, my parents bought a house on a lake. So we had a great opportunity of our playground. Our backyard included water play. And I grew up in the water every summer. And I think that prepared me to be already able and ready to go in swimming. And my two older brothers were famous and already established. I should say my three older brothers in the sport. So when we got to junior high school, where there was a pool provided by our school district, we immediately joined the swim team. When I say we, it's my twin brother and I.
So take me through the siblings, their names, age difference.
Okay. So my oldest brother, his name was Bill William. He was 9 years older than my twin and I. We were born in 51 and in high school, graduated high school in 69. So he graduated in 60 from Birmingham High School. My next brother, Lee, he was 2 years younger, 7 years older than I did. He graduated high school in 62. Different high schools. Our town of Birmingham grew big enough where they built a second school in that time. So my oldest brother graduated from Seaholm, and the next four brothers graduated from Groves High School. And then my brother Rocky, the middle child, he is 5 years older, and he was a multi-sport person. Everyone else was just a swimmer. He did everything. He's 5 years older, and then my twin and I.
Now, obviously, we'll get to your senior year in the Birmingham swimming scene in a second, or in a little bit here, but your senior year, top two programs in the state of Michigan were Birmingham Groves and Birmingham Seaholm, which must have made Birmingham quite the swimming scene in the late 60s. Can you talk to me a little bit about what that was like to have be swimming in such a strong swimming community?
All right. So first of all, I didn't really realize that. I grew up in a swimming family. It was just what everyone did. And being a strong swimmer and winning was ordinary. I just thought that was what happens. And I didn't realize that was special at the time. And I wasn't aware that our town had a dynasty, just not aware of it at all. That's the first thing. But my junior year, we placed in the top. I think we were second or third. And so our senior year, we were first in the state. And then we were competitive and we cared, and it was important. I got disqualified in the 200 IM, and I thought I had ruined our chances. I thought I had let down the state, let down my school but we had enough points to win.
I did pick that up, and we will definitely get to that in a little bit here. So, everybody in your family, from what I picked up, all breaststrokers, right? What was the affinity for breaststroking?
I don't know. I'm going to say the right size feet and the right, genetic pool of having strong muscles and lungs and respiratory system. It was just natural. We didn't have to get special training. We were already good.
So for you, obviously you said that you grew up at a time, as you were growing up, it just seemed natural that you were a good swimmer and that you were in a good swimming community because your brothers were and your team was, successful. But for you individually, was there, I'm sure it's difficult to remember back to individual years and races and some of those things, but do you remember a time in your life where you realized that you personally could be good at it, whether it was a race or a season? You're nodding. Tell me about that moment that you realized you could be good too.
All right, so that is a great question that feeds my narrative perfectly. I'm a twin, but we're fraternal, and my twin brother matured a full year before I did. And he was following in my older brother's footsteps as being a known entity, a swimmer who wins. And I was little and common. And so in our freshman year, my twin brother has been brought up to the varsity team. He's placing in state meet. He took 6th place. And I'm on the junior high team as a ordinary win some, lose some swimmer. I hadn't identified as a breaststroker. I swam all. I did IM and freestyle and backstroke. I even did some diving. Then in my sophomore year, I matured. And so here's the story. Our swim coach would not compete, have my brother and I, my twin and I, swim the same event. So he had already established himself as a great breaststroker, even at a young age. And so he had that event locked up. He was on the relay and from the 100 breaststroke. And I was used as a utility swimmer. And then in our sophomore year, there was an invitational swim meet, and the coach let us pick our own races. And so I picked breaststroke for the first time. And the very first time I swam it, I had the fastest breaststroke time in the state, and I demolished my twin. He had been expecting to, he's always a winner and always, taking first, second. And in this meet, he took 6th, and he went from the pedestal, off the pedestal. We got bumped. And I, surprisingly, unexpected, got put on the pedestal, and he didn't talk to me for a year. It was a really big deal that when I succeeded in breaststroke, he failed, and it made our home life miserable.
I want to follow behind that for a little bit. I mean, because you had been kind of kept from the opportunity to compete with him, you went towards that opportunity when given an opportunity. I would imagine there's probably a link in how well you performed in that first opportunity to kind of compete against him. I mean, how driven were you to finally prove yourself in that race? Was that your focus to beat him in that race specifically?
No, I didn't want to beat him. I wanted to know where I fit in the scope of the sport in breaststroke. I wanted to just find out, well, what can I do? Because the coach would never find out. So it was just a discovery. I wasn't. Because I was because I was smaller. I'll give you the example of smaller. In 7th grade, my twin was 40 pounds heavier, 5 inches taller. And he grew. He grew up to be adult size a full 2 years before I did. And so as I caught up slowly, my sophomore, junior year, I finally became man size. I was so accustomed to just being the littler guy, less powerful, less famous. That was just my role. That was who that's what I accepted.
So to follow that narrative up that you kind of set up there, you said it with a smile on your face, but I think there was probably some truth in it that you said he didn't talk to me for a year. How did that impact your relationship over what fed into your senior year of high school? With you beating him, did that make things more tenuous for really the rest of your high school career from that point forward?
I have so many different ways to go with this answer. So we were our team was trying to win the state championship. And so the coach juggling his talent, his resources to do that meant that he's on a piece of paper, he's looking for how do we get the most points. And there were a lot of times in the dual meet process where I wasn't needed in breaststroke, so I could do the other things. And I was a very good utility swimmer. I was in the top 6 in the state in freestyle, in backstroke, in individual medley. I was very competitive. So as far as earning points goes, I was often used elsewhere. Like on the medley relay, I swam backstroke, and my twin brother swam breaststroke. So when it came to the state meet, it was about points. The coach was, we can earn them a chance at winning the title. And my twin brother and I swam, both of us, in the breaststroke, and we took first and second. It was awesome. It was one of the highlights of my life. All right, so that's one form of the answer. The other form is my twin brother, his power came from hating his opponent. If he was going to beat them in the pool, he had to imagine them as his rival. So he was a tough person in that way. So he spent quite a bit of a time of being mad at me. We shared a car. We were twins. We shared a car. We shared a house. And he really didn't count me as one of his friends until college.
What motivated you? If he needed to hate his opponents, what did you need to compete well? What motivated you intrinsically?
Interesting. I was naive. I was the littlest of my, kind of the littlest in my whole family. 4 other brothers, and my twin was bigger than I am. I was a happy kid, just being in the shadows, and it never really, that competitive edge never really ever fit in. In fact, I wanted to go with the previous question on something I was aware of. In 1972, I tried out for the Olympics. They only invite the top 20 swimmers in the nation, and so in that top 20, what chance did I have? If I had a perfect meet, I could be first, second, and third in the nation. I was on the cusp right there. My best race, I could go to the Olympics. And so analyzing that moment in time, what do you have to have in place to compete at that level? And I had all the boxes checked except the emotional standing of confidence. I was so used to just laying low, being in the background, that I didn't see myself as a champion. And I'm going to say that stopped me from being an Olympian. So the emotional side of swimming, it really was damaged. Because when I beat my twin, I couldn't celebrate because he hurt so much. And our relationship was so strained that that sense of winning had a big weight on my shoulders. And so ultimately, it was the story. It's the story that was what I was lacking, to be in the echelons of swimming.
I have to tell you this project that I've been working on has exposed the same thing to me. I think at best I might have been a good swimmer. Certainly not at the caliber of the great swimmers or elite swimmers that I've been talking to. And that's what's really been exposed to me in the conversations. Is in many cases, what you may have felt separated you from the elite swimmers, you were a great swimmer. Maybe itching to try to get to that absolute elite status, but when you have the opportunity to have these types of conversations like I've had with many of the really, really great swimmers in the history of the state of Michigan, you realize there's a different way that they tick. And in many cases, it was instilled upon them much earlier than I think it even started to click for you. You described great moments at 16. In many cases, some of the great swimmers in the history of the state had those breakthrough moments at 10. They start thinking nationally at 11 or 12, seeing themselves in national age group lists, and you can see the kind of the dots connecting in a way that I could kind of step back in these conversations and realize never happened for me. And that level of competitiveness and drive to be the absolute best is something that, like, I'm not sure I ever saw the void in myself until I could really sit down and have these conversations and realize that's not me. You know, I see that difference. And
I loved workouts. So being the best, I wanted being in a lane with my teammates and having a good workout. I loved that. When it came to the competitive size of you got, you know, in a year, because of the nature of the sport, you have maybe 3 or 4 important races in a year. I hated that. I wanted that moment to be over. I didn't want to get up on the blocks and test myself, with the exception of the senior year when we won state meet. I loved that meet, except for when I got disqualified. But that year I had confidence and was loving it. But all the other times it was like, oh gosh, the putting myself up there on front and on the line was torture, and not, yeah, I'm going to do it. Yeah.
But you pulled through that your junior year,
even if you weren't feeling all of that confidence. You know, as I look through the state meet results, your junior year, I think you win your first state championship, and you were 3rd in the 200 IM. You know, you kind of are arriving, like you said, you were a swimmer with diverse skills, and you could play a jack of all trades for your team, and that obviously helped you in the 200 IM, and you kind of emerge as one of, you know, pretty clearly one of probably the 3 best swimmers in the state of Michigan, as a champion in one, and one of the 3 best IMers out there. Tell me if you can, kind of tell me about that junior year. You know, you talked about kind of overcoming your brother and kind of finding your niche in the breaststroke. But if you remember that state meet in particular, that first state championship, what did that mean to you?
So I was not prepared to be good with my life situation. No one ever said your family's amazing or, you know, unique in their ability to be champions. No, I really, it didn't come down to me, or I didn't register that was anything exceptional. So junior year, senior year, I'm starting to figure it out. Oh, this is not typical what's going on. I really loved the swim team, and again, working out. And I liked being a strong swimmer, you know, contributing. The relays were super important to me, even through college. That's where I loved it, supporting others and doing my best and contributing to the overall. That's where I felt best all through all my swimming career. Let me go on to say one more thing. The junior year, when I swam the 100 breaststroke in the state meet. My twin brother and I, we really hadn't been defined yet as who's the best. I just had 1 or 2 races, and he'd been swimming it his whole career. So in that race at the University of Michigan, every year, and you know this, right? The location of state meet changed from Michigan State to Michigan, so it's very clear which environment we're in. So at the Michigan pool, the coach puts both of us in the breaststroke, and my twin brother the year before had, I don't know, taken in the top 6. He'd been 4th as a junior. I was a sophomore, so he had high hopes for being one of the best, even first in state. And he had a bad meet, and he took at like 12th. And I took first and set the state record. And I could not appreciate, and I couldn't feel good about that, because when I'm standing on the trophy awards ceremony, getting first place, my twins in the locker room, hammering his fists on the lockers, you know, having a fit of juxtaposition. So it was a very unhappy moment for me.
Wow. I mean, it just is so quickly, your story just differentiates from any other one that I've had, you know, and any other conversation, because of the relationship with your brother, and that being present in more than just a brother, a twin, you know, like somebody that you've shared everything. every experience in your life has been intertwined. My sister has 17-year-old twins, and I at least have a sense of that relationship and the intertwined experience. And I can only imagine what you're describing and that experience and how that kind of took away for you, you know, a little bit of what you might have experienced, what another swimmer might have experienced had they gone through the same thing. You know, you shared a picture with me, and I might share it here in just a second here for anybody who might watch this to be able to see. But you were in incredible shape as a high schooler, and during that senior year. Tell me about, you know, you said I wasn't ready to be good or to be great. Well, now you are great. Now you're the state champion and the state record holder, the fastest breaststroker that's ever swum, you know, in the state of Michigan. And now you're going into your senior year. And I'm wondering, you know, maybe the idea of swimming in college might be starting to connect in your mind. And, you know, we're going to get there in a second, but you improved significantly from junior to senior year and take that state record down to a really special place. We'll talk about that again in a second. But how did that success as a junior impact your preparation for your senior year and kind of you wanting to take that next step?
So yes, my older brothers had been college scholarship swimmers. And I thought that's just ordinary. I thought a scholarship just to be an athlete was just commonplace. I was so naive looking back on it. I was expecting a college scholarship. I loved workouts, so I trained hard. Having a great workout and having a great set brought me great satisfaction. And so I wasn't so goal-oriented to get a scholarship because I just expected. My goal was to work hard, to do my best, to you know, do the work.
I just popped this picture on for people to be able to see here. So this was Larry at that age. I mean, I don't know how many different muscles we're seeing in this picture here, but it looks like about 10 or 12. How many sit-ups were you doing a day to create these abs?
I was going to practice. I wasn't doing. I will say the one thing that was kind of an interesting training thing is I was allowed some freedom from my parents and from my mom. My father had deceased when I was 14. So my mom gave us some freedom. Being the younger children, she kind of let loose of worrying about us. We took a week-long vacation in the summer of our junior year and did sand dune hopping. And we went to every sand dune in the state of Michigan, and jumped off hills and climbed up the hills. And I feel that was what trained us. That the pushing in the sand and using your, you know, and it's a breaststroke move. It's using your feet to climb up the hills. I think that was a unusual training that benefited me. Other than that, we just grew up on a lake and we had chores, and we still played and water skied and swam across the whole lake and back. So just the playfulness of being in the lake environment was probably, not only were we training in the pool with the coach, we used the lake and we were training in play.
Well, there's no way that you can tell me that you lost your father at 14, and I'm not going to follow up on that. Obviously, that's a very important point in your life. How did that impact you?
All right, so the first thing was, you know, great sadness, and I put him on a pedestal. I wanted him to be the greatest man ever. And he was, the funeral process and all of that was, I saw how he had impacted our community. And there was a lot of outpouring for our family because of that event. And so I'm going, oh, this guy was so cool. and a perfect man. And then I went the other way, which is I've lost out. I'm angry. I'm a sense of loss, and then I'm looking at, well, maybe he wasn't so perfect. So I went through a kind of like the steps they use for Alcoholics Anonymous. Is you have these steps of grieving, and and that is during my informative years when I'm in high school. My dad's the greatest thing that ever happened, and then it was, no, he's not, and he's just a man, and all that's in play. The biggest thing is I didn't have that support. It was missing. It was a void. My mom was doing her own thing. Her story is just as amazing as, and she's going back to school and getting some jobs and being promoted. And so she's pursuing her career because we're already past those formative years, and she attends the meets and all, but she's doing her thing. She's finding out who she is, and we're all doing that together, and that's very cool. So it was just kind of an empty space. I wish I wanted to make him proud.
Well, I'm sure anyone who has a spirituality about themselves would say that you did. How did that impact not just your twin brother, but all of your brothers' relationship together? Was there kind of a leaning in towards each other at that point to try and help each other through that, or did everyone kind of work through it on their own?
I've never been asked that question in my whole life. No, there was not a leaning in. Everyone, the boys, we were called the driver boys, everyone pursued their own interests. We only came together when we bought land in Arkansas and tried this grand experiment of living in the national forest and building our own houses and having gardens, and only then did we come together. And that was 10 years after high school for me.